Hello everyone, it is Andrew Carroll today, and here we are talking about polysemy versus homonymy. So this is a comparison of the two. I'm also going to be stating some similarities, and this is my semantics presentation. So what is the difference between the two? So homonymy is when two words sound the same but have unrelated meanings. Polysemy is when they're two different words which are pronounced the same but have similar but not identical meanings. So the knowledge of these terms is important in semantics as it helps us to identify the differences between how meanings of similar words relate to each other. So this is important in understanding how the mental lexicon is structured. So examples of homonymy, so we've got lie as in an untruth versus lie as in lie on a bed. We got bark as a dog versus bark on a tree. We got bat as a baseball bat versus bat as an animal. Die as in cease living versus die as in like the cube with numbers that you roll. Mean as an average end versus mean, which is not nice. And then tire fatigue as versus tire as in like a wheel. So we have polysemy. We have milk versus milk. And here what happened is that the word milk, the noun, became to mean also the way of getting milk. So you milk a cow. And then what happened here is that the body part came to also mean the division of a company, which as in like it like spreads off to the side, kind of like it's like another way the company has a reach over society. That's where that comes from. So man, as in the human species, versus man males, it comes from the idea that that men are kind of the, I guess more, it's very sexist, more important sex, and so when you talk about all of humanity, you talk about man. So yeah, as you know, it's not humanity, it's humanity. And then key is an open doors with versus key is the most important, like the key solution for climate change, as in like the number one thing. It comes from the idea that a key used to open the door is very important. It's how you get through the door. It's how everything starts. So that's where that comes from. And then newspaper, the reading material used just branched off to mean also the brand, the company that publishes that newspaper. As well, not just the physical thing. And then eye used for seeing versus eye of the storm versus eye of potato. And here all that happened was that because of these things, the storm, eye of a storm, and eye of potato look like an eye. It became also the use of the word eye. So these are all similar meanings, and the brain like attaches them to each other. Kind of it knows that they're similar, and it's clear that these still have kind of related meanings. But there are some gray areas. There's sometimes gray areas between homonymy and polysemy. Some homonymy may share the same etymology as their meanings, but have become unrelated, that they are not seen as polysemy. Some may have had different etymologies, but have now become associated and become polysemy. So, the word right is in to mean correct versus right as in direction. It comes from the same cognate to straighten, and direction comes from the idea that the right side is good or correct. So the modern day right direction does not have any more positive qualities than when the word was formed. And these words may have been polysemous in the past, but they become homonyms as they do not have a similar meaning. So whilst the direction of right may have come from the meaning like to correct, it also comes from right, righteous, like that kind of thing. While it may have had that meaning in the past, people do not associate that direction with anything good or correct or high or anything up. So that's now become a homonym, whilst it was once a polysemy. And then we've got faggot is in bundle of sticks versus faggot is in a homosexual. So it comes from the old French fagot, I think it's pronounced, bundle of sticks, and in the 20th century became the meaning contemptuous woman, meaning she's baggage for men, hence faggot. Branched off to mean a feminine man and one who sleeps with men. So the word has become so distinct as a slur that its meaning for bundle of sticks has become trivial. A homosexual person is unrelated to the thing that gave it its name. So people will ensure that if they are using the word to mean bundle of sticks, because they are the minority, that it's not relating to the slur, which becomes kind of difficult for some people. But some people might want to still use it to refer to bundle of sticks, a faggot. but they will ensure that these mean two completely different things. So while they might have been polysemous in the past, people will object to any idea that they still are, and they're just homonyms basically. Then we have something like mouse, computer versus mouse animal. Mouse comes from the Indo-European mus, meaning the same as the small round rodent. Mouse, named after the animal due to the similar appearance, computer mouse. So whilst the computer mouse was strongly associated with the animal, especially in marketing material, the use of the word is a very little conscious linguistic connection. Every year and generation, there is less and less association between the two definitions, turning gradually from polysemy into homonymy. So you might have looked 50 years ago, looked at a mouse and said, oh, that looks like a little rodent thing that squeaks and runs around. But today, when people talk about a computer mouse, very rarely do they associate it with the actual rodent mouse, especially as they've become way more common and even more common than the rodent mouse. So as the years go by, it becomes less and less polysemous and more homonymous, because their relations keep on deteriorating until most people see them as completely different things that have nothing in common. Arms versus arms, as in limbs and weapons. This is a case where they come from two different areas. So arms comes from Proto-Germanic amars and amus, which means shoulder. That's in Latin. And arms comes also from Latin, from arma, meaning weapons. So both originally from Proto-European prefix "ar," which means to fit together. Their words branched off in completely different ways to get their modern meaning. Whilst sharing cognate, these words developed individually through totally different contexts. But, however, many people feel the words are polysemous as they associate weapons such as guns with the use of the arm, the body part, to use these weapons. So it started as monimy, but may have become polysemy. So a lot of the time when people talk about their right to bear arms, or like take up arms or something like that, I think a lot of them associated with getting up using your arm to get a gun or something like that. So it becomes this weird gray area. Whilst it might have had nothing in common at the beginning, it is there is association kind of building, and a lot of people see them as kind of similar-esque kind of uses of the word, and you may be mistaken as polysemy, and that has made it ironically become polysemy. So the use of polysemy and homonymy and humor. So both polysemy and homonymy are used to create humor, often called puns, by interpreting one meaning to another. So this is how they're similar, but they're used in different ways. So for example, one tells another to walk through the door. The person replies, "I am not a ghost, I cannot walk through the solid object." So this joke is that the person is interpreting the other's command with a polysemous use of the word. The former referring to not the door itself, but the gap created through the opening of the door and moving out of the way, and the latter interpreting it as the meaning of the physical door itself. And then we have another one asks another, "Are you well?" The other replies, "Do I look like I'm 20 meters deep and filled with water?" In this case, a person is interpreting the other's question with a homonymous use of the word "well," the former referring to the meanings that refer to healthiness, happiness, with the latter referring to the large hole in the town, which is used to collect water from underground. So here, polysemous and homonymy are used similarly in this regard. However, it has been noted that the joke using polysemous is more commonly a mistake, and so the joke might not be as obvious or dumb as in the homonymous use. So if you want to make it obvious that you're joking, you might want to prefer to use a homonymous use of words rather than the polysemous use, because I think people, especially if they're not hearing correctly, might not understand that you are purposely making a mistake. You might interpret a polysemous use of a word instead of the actual word itself that they're trying to convey. So the homonymous joke is might be more common because it's more obvious, basically, that it is a joke in itself. So knowing the differences is useful for language teaching. So teaching people the distinction of meanings when learning English can make their learning easier. So the different meanings of homonyms words are easy to understand as they're totally unrelated from each other, and so harder to mix up and be confused by. For example, bank as in building corporation versus bank, riverbank. The different meanings of some polysemous words are difficult to distinguish from each other as their context is quite nuanced. For example, "I hate the bank, they're greedy." Whilst the context may be that they hate the bank as a corporation, many English learners might mistake it as meaning that they hate the bank building and are accusing the workers there of being greedy. So they will, however, easily judge that the speaker is not calling a riverbank greedy. So knowing the difference is important for an English language learner, as it means that they'll be able to realize that some words have completely unrelated meanings, and some of them have very similar, and they need to watch out for those particular ones, that they're not getting them mixed up. So it's important for a non-English speaker to know, oh, this word can be used in a polysemous way, and make sure that you understand the context, that it's used this specific way versus this specific way, because if it's in context, it is much easier to understand if a word is being used, if it's a completely different meaning, basically. So the activity is for you guys is discuss and identify whether the following pairs of words are homonymy or polysemy, or if there is a gray area. So we have ring as in wedding ring versus ring the sound, bright as in intelligent versus bright light, match as in equalize versus match in lighting a fire, rock as in rock music versus rock as in a stone, stalk as in harass someone versus the stalk of a plant, current as in up to date versus current water, pound, unit of weight versus pound to beat. Good luck. Thank you.